Welcome. I'm glad you're joining me to discover the 21st century secret to solving nagging, confusing, aggravating back pain. I'm Melissa Krikorian. I have my master's degree in PT, but PT is not what we are talking about today. It is taking me over 20 years to coalesce this information. But once I did, it changed the results I got every day in my practice. What I'm talking about is an almost completely different universe from PT, but it is what I teach other PTs in continuing education classes, and they are amazed with the results they get with just the beginning pieces. So much so that they often enroll in a 4 year professional training to become expert at using neuroscience to upgrade their outcomes. Right now, all of you can touch your brain, and yet your conscious access to repatterning it for pain relief is completely out of your reach. So was mine when I first started using this method. With this method of remodeling your brain, you can teach your nervous system to tag habitual health degrading choices and instead map health enhancing alternatives so you can move, think, and feel differently. So I'm going to share my screen and let's start.
In this webinar, you are going to learn number one, the three biggest mistakes people with back pain make. Number two, the reasons why things you might have tried in the past don't work. And number three, the why and how of what does work. Unlike as few as 10 years ago, we now have neuroscience available to us, quantifying and substantiating how we can use our body's innate intelligence to reverse engineer our pain and symptoms. My patients and clients have accessed these results by a willingness to approach their pain in a different way than they have done in the past. And the very fact that you have chosen to watch this webinar makes me believe that you are willing too. I often work with people who have tried everything and are ready to get to the root cause of their problem instead of just addressing their surface symptoms. If you're serious about wanting to leave behind physical or emotional pain, limited mobility, stenosis, herniated discs, sciatica, stress, and anxiety, this work is designed to move you forward. Here's the thing, your body knows how to heal. It does it all the time. You get a cut or a bruise and it goes away. You don't command your body to heal, it just does it. It's like an amazing personal assistant taking care of your needs before you ask. So, why aren't you healing? 30 years ago, I thought exercise was the answer. My husband, who's a cyclist, says the fountain of youth has two wheels, but what if it hurts to ride a bike? I was a private trainer in Beverly Hills. I worked out hours every day, but I noticed something. Pain and stiffness and various other symptoms often got in the way of my clients' progress. Then there were all the stories, repetitive strains, on the job or old ballet injuries, hockey injuries, rock climbing falls, car accidents, herniated discs, impinged nerve roots, rotator cuff tears. How could I maneuver through all that onslaught of dysfunction? How was I supposed to fix them? I thought traditional medicine had the answer. Like you, I had to travel a long road to get here. I had to keep vetting and spent time and money weeding out what wasn't of value. I went to PT school. I tried continuing education seminars, training regimens, alternative medicine, and mind body connection explorations. Sometimes I got discouraged and overwhelmed by the lack of answers, but like you, I kept on searching to find the simplest, most elegant way to ease physical and emotional discomfort. If you can't move, there is a sequela of mental and emotional repercussions, not to mention financial, that rob you of maintaining your standard of living and pursuing your dreams. Here's the problem. Despite the narrative you have been told about something inside of you being broken, you're not. This approach does not try to fix something that is not broken. There isn't a local structure that's broken and needs to be fixed. There is a way you use your structures that either enhances or degrades them. Your pain literally comes from your sensory system, not your musculoskeletal system. This is a wild concept for most of us, but in fact, there are people who are amputees who have pain in their absent limb. The tissue isn't even there, but they feel pain. We can explain more of that at another time if you choose to work with me more in depth. But right now, it's important that you understand pain is a sensory experience that ideally motivates different behavior. Behavior is organized in the brain, not at a local musculoskeletal level. Your brain organizes how you use your muscles, which influences how you use your bones. So when you have a tissue breakdown, bone changes with spinal stenosis, or muscle changes with low back strains, or connective tissue changes with spinal instability, or nervous tissue changes with sciatic pain, the answer is not about a local treatment, injections, surgery, core strengthening, meds to deaden local nerves don't have significant impact long term. The answer is a global systems approach of changing how you use your brain to command your body, a brain reboot, and a brain body approach. My method upgrades your sensory system so you get a better read on incoming information. You could call it sensory data. Since you get a better data feed, you make a more informed and efficient response. Cloudy sensing causes a poor data read, which results in a sloppy muscle response, which results in more pain and dysfunction. So now, here are the 3 biggest mistakes people with back pain make. The biggest mistake you can make is to ignore the pain. This is the number one thing that keeps people stuck. Don't feel bad about this because it is consistently reinforced by our culture of just pushing through. How many of you have, within the last week, thought, I really don't want to do this, but I have to, and then proceeded, and then suffered more pain, emotional or physical? The obvious problem with this is that you never turn the corner towards healing. You are getting used to the pain and learning to live with it. Perhaps you are even at the stage of repeating what you've always done before for a quick fix and now find it isn't working so well. You do not want to keep on this path of futility. Ignoring pain, pushing through, can cause even more damage than the cause of the pain signal itself you are ignoring. While you are turning a blind eye out of false hopes that the pain will just somehow go away, or believing the pain is just about you getting old and having to tolerate it, your tissues are actually being destroyed. If we could take a boat inside of your spine, we'd see an injury, torn tissues, and other debris. We'd see white blood cells that have been sent to clean up the mess. We'd find chemicals called cytokines, proteins produced during disease and injury to help support healing. You are making the original wound worse. Ignoring and pushing through it is not only not addressing the wound, it's compounding it. Pain is a message pulsing from a complex nervous system. This system is constantly communicating through feedback loops to keep your health and well-being in balance. It's called homeostasis. It picks up information in the form of sensation, physical sensations, temperature, and chemical changes very easily. Pain is our nervous system's pulsing a message of change needed. If we are ignoring our pain, we're not registering and responding to that message. The feedback loop for health and well-being is disrupted, and the normal healing process is stalled out. This sets up a secondary feedback loop of anti-health with a downline of what is often seemingly unrelated but intimately tied to our initial pain. For instance, back pain can lead to a sedentary lifestyle, which can lead to depression, which can lead to overeating, which can lead to obesity, which can lead to diabetes and heart problems. Registering the pain message at the very beginning is called paying attention. And what is very interesting, and this is what I teach the PTs who take professional continuing education classes from me, is that through this paying attention in a novel way, we begin to rewire our brains. I'll give you more information about the research on this in a moment. The second biggest mistake that people with back pain make is to look for an external fix. So say you do decide to pay attention to pain signals. What is the next logical step? Well, relative rest, trying to get healthy. Maybe you think losing weight will help you, so you do Pilates or Zumba or yoga or core strengthening. Perhaps endless doctor's appointments for special treatments. You can try opioid meds or get injections and shots. Maybe you even go to PT for a conservative approach. Perhaps you see a chiropractor. Maybe you have gotten partial or temporary relief from these modalities. I can give you the reasons why another time, but here is where all of these interventions slip up. They are all things done to you. What we are talking about today is about an internal change that you discover, you own and implement. It is independent of someone else. You are learning, and learning is changing your brain. You are reinstating your dominion over your body. You are not subject to another skill level, machinery, a protocol, an interpretation, or a schedule. We are not treating symptoms. We treat the faulty encoding in the brain of the habitual, unconscious, physical and or emotional movement patterns. The neuromuscular encoding in your brain does not change from exercise classes, diets, meds, or stretching programs. You know because you have done all of those without the results you need. Your neuromuscular encoding changes by learning how to closely listen and respond to sensory information effectively. We call this re-education. As a physically and psychologically healthy child, you moved efficiently and effortlessly without ever being taught. You discovered how to roll, sit up, come to stand, walk, run, jump without any help. You were in a constant feedback loop with your sensory motor system. No one ever taught you good function. What I will do is set up an environment that encourages you, suggests to you, allows you to explore and return to these original optimal patterns. It happens every day at my center. People like Lori, she was 48 years old. She had to leave her nursing career, gave up on swimming, her favorite sport, turned down travel, and limited her life because of a failed back surgery. She had such severe neck pain, several specialists insisted the only solution was surgery. She had tried PT, acupuncture, chiropractic, and needed pain meds just to be okay. She found her way to this method, and now she is not on meds, travels, and has returned to swimming. She moves with ease and does what she wants. Using a quick external fix that usually has a very short shelf life of effectiveness keeps us in a rut of declining health. Fixing assumes you are broken. You are not broken. You have an amazing network of interacting systems, musculoskeletal, nervous, hormonal, digestive, cardiovascular, immune, that harmonize for health. If you are not getting better, you need a brain reboot to bring these systems back into balance, which is called homeostasis, so you can start the innate healing process. It is imperative. The third mistake we make with pain and symptoms is insidious. Out of desperation, your brain begins to develop unconscious workarounds or compensations that ante up the already degrading movement patterns from injury or repetitive stress. Over a lifetime of physical and or emotional trauma or repetitive stress, we begin to protect painful or injured parts of our body. This protection often shows up as unconscious holding, with key links in the functional chain of movement frozen because of this holding. The workload of normal activity, not to mention high-level sports and or manual labor, gets dumped into joints above or below the protected one, causing excessive wear and tear and tissue breakdown. The new movement organization, initially installed unconsciously as a compensation for protection, begins to imprison our movement. We begin to move like a Barbie doll with just a neck, 2 arms and 2 hips. The workload is not spread over multiple planes of movements and joints, so one area is overstressed. Our protective movement habits become encoded in our brain. After the surgery or injections, we continue using the faulty habitual operating system. We even learn how to exercise on top of the compensations. Cutting out the part of your disc that's pressing on your sciatic nerve or fusing vertebra so they don't move may, and often does not, give you temporary relief. But because you haven't changed the way the spinal segment is being used, it's like a door with a loose hinge, and it doesn't quite clear the carpet and causes an excessive wear pattern. You can replace the carpet, but the same thing will happen again. And in the meantime, the other hinge is breaking down also. Often, one surgery jerry-rigs the spine, so you don't have pain at that level anymore, but you begin to have symptoms at other levels, like Lori. Here is what I've seen with surgeries. If you have a discectomy or laminectomy, you haven't changed the way you use your spinal segments, so they continue to experience abnormal wear and tear and eventually become re-injured. Or perhaps because of the surgery, you become more cautious, move less, and therefore have less overall impact on the joint. You're still doing the damage, just at a slower pace that you don't notice. With a fusion, the affected joint can't move, so other joints above or below the surgical site have to take up the slack and they break down. There is a 40% failure rate with all fusion surgery. A third thing that happens is from the surgery, and by the way, all surgery is invasive. Sometimes it's marketed as non-invasive, but what they're really saying is it's just relatively less invasive than other surgeries. So from the surgery, you begin to develop other compensatory holding patterns that cause symptoms in new and different joints. Just like a computer's motherboard is a system of circuits containing the principal components which connects information flow, our brain is a dynamic, connected power grid. We use billions of neural pathways each time we think, feel, or do something. Consistently used pathways become our habits, and the neural connection is made stronger, more entrenched each time we use this pathway. The default path is easier to use the more entrenched it becomes. Neuroscientists say neurons that fire together wire together. So we establish habitual ways of thinking, doing, and being. But these pathways can be altered. Our brains can change, and this is called neuroplasticity. It was only about a decade ago that scientists began to shift from thinking our brain was hardwired or fixed after early childhood. But with the innovative, inquisitive work of a scientist named Michael Merzenich and those like him, who I'll talk about more in a moment, we now understand we can rewire our brain. If we keep traveling the new pathway, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway weakens. It is also said, neurons that fire apart, wire apart. Most people assume that as we age, our system inevitably gets less efficient. Again, it's just that our brain, like the operating system on your computer, gets sluggish and files get scattered. What scientists are finding is that we can easily, quickly re-educate our brain, much like defragmenting our computer to restore optimal performance. Again, this is neuroplasticity. We don't rewire with rote tasks. Michael Merzenich, who is the grandfather of neuroplasticity, did groundbreaking research at UCSF. He was one of the few researchers who defied the scientific establishment and was sure that the brain could change at any age. His experiments with brain training showed that rote exercises do not change the brain. To really rewire the brain, The information streaming had to come from novel, surprising, unexpected events. One experiment was set up to give a monkey a treat if the monkey could touch a spinning disc. Merzenich found that if the monkey stopped the disc with its finger, the brain pathways changed, grew, expanded for a day or two, but then went back to the original default neural roads. However, if he encouraged the monkeys to touch the spinning disc without stopping it, these new pathways became permanent. The monkey needed something interesting, novel, surprising to learn. We all know this from our schooling experiences. We learned what was fascinating to us and never forgot. The other stuff we just spit out for a test and forgot it the next day. This means my method has to be really interesting to you to break habitual compensatory movement patterns. Once a response becomes a habit, it is moved to a different part of our brain, a part called the basal ganglia, and it becomes unconscious. You don't think about how to brush your teeth, and that's good. We wouldn't want to have to relearn that skill every night. So this process has its place. Actions learned and habituated in your basal ganglia to save time and energy is a great system when it's properly used. What is interesting is that habitual ways of thinking and feeling are stored in the same part of your brain, the basal ganglia. That is why in this work, when you learn to move differently, you also have changes in the way you think and how you feel. Here is the bad news. Habits can hurt. Not responding to real-time streaming of information in the form of pain or symptoms, and not having a well-developed attention radar for sensory perception to make an executive decision with new information can lead to poor reactions, with local musculoskeletal structures being abnormally loaded and eventual system collapse, which is then erroneously labeled as aging. So, our brains control all our movements, how we use our joints, muscles, and skeletons to reach, sit, stand, walk. Our brains control how we breathe and the degree of anxiety we feel, how we digest our food or don't digest our food, how our immune system efficiently or not so efficiently protects us. We are one integrated system controlled by our brains. When we get stuck in creaky, achy bodies or emotional pain and anxiety, when we lose our vitality and younger energy levels, we need to go to the root cause of the issue for a long-lasting solution. Most people miss this most intelligent, crucial step, recognizing our habits, physical and emotional, and re-educating our brains. Our brain changes our pain. It is so close to us that we can touch it, yet for most of us, we are unconscious of how it drives our reactions and then are confused and disappointed by the results. So you see how important it is to 1. Not ignore a pain pulse as a message, 2. Have a highly developed attention system that gets upgraded with novel, surprising sensory information, and 3. Avoid degrading habitual responses and relearn optimal motor patterns you tracked as a healthy developing child. But how do you do that? And how do you know if something is a habitual compensation or a clean motor pattern that is serving you? That's what you will learn with me. Some of you may be thinking, yeah, but I have been diagnosed with a herniated disc, or sciatica, or bone spurs, or scoliosis, or arthritis. Okay, great. Somebody looked at an x-ray or MRI or did a blood test and gave you a label. So, you now have your label. Reads of MRI, CT, or x-ray films aren't often the same from one practitioner to another. In some cases, with physician-owned scanning facilities, reads always bias in favor of surgery. If you get one MRI scan, there's a 50% chance you'll have another. A label is just that, a label, not an answer to your pain. Spinal abnormalities such as bulging, herniated, and degenerated discs were commonplace in asymptomatic individuals, people who did not suffer from low back pain. Your body is a living organism responding to its environment. After a while, as a PT, I asked myself, how come L4, L5, and S1 are always the involved segments? They're always the one with the herniated disc or the impinged nerve root. Why not L1 or L2? Why is stenosis always at those levels and not higher up in the thoracic spine at T11 or T12? Why is it that 99% of the time the L4, L5, S1 vertebral segments are affected in diagnosis? It is because those segments are the loading segments of your spine. It is the way you overuse those loading segments and underuse all the supporting structures like your ribs, hips, other vertebral segments. Recognizing and reorganizing habitual physical and emotional responses allows optimal integration of all your joints and structures to offload the work in the area that is being chewed up, the one with the diagnosis. Someone else might refer to a genetic genesis of their pain. My dad had a bad back. The current thinking in genetic research is an idea called epigenetics. It's an idea that our environment sets off gene expression. Epigenetics is the study of gene expression caused by mechanisms other than changes in the underlying DNA sequence. My good friend was 53 years old when, on a phone conversation, she told me she couldn't change her horrible job because she needed the insurance. She needed the specially covered rheumatoid arthritis drug, interferon. But I said, you have to be diagnosed with that via a blood test. That's due to a faulty gene. Yes, she said, I am positive STAT4. That's the RA gene, the rheumatoid arthritis gene. I couldn't believe it. No one in her family had RA, and neither did she until she was 53, getting divorced, retreating from a wealthy lifestyle into a very financially demanding one with 5 children, working in the lowest income school in her city. I wondered what happened to her immune system. Did all that emotional stress break the homeostatic balance, developing a degrading versus an enhancing health feedback loop? If she were able to bring more balance in her emotional life, would her immune system resume its prior state of balance, its prior homeostasis? Someone else might be thinking, well, that's all well and good if I had caught my condition earlier, but now it's too late. I've already used up my tissues and I'm too old. But it's not too late to restore functional movement, and functional movement heals. It hydrates, nourishes, restores mobility, oxygen, blood flow, cleanses, revitalizes your whole integrated self. Studies done on subjects into their 90s reveal brain and body changes can and do occur with intention.
Your answers are within your brain and body, and you just have to learn what you are doing so you can change it. Because it has been so long since you've had clarity and success in handling your symptoms, you think you need some external fix. Just increasing your ability to sense and feel how you are moving or not moving, how you are responding or perhaps reacting, allows your brain to restore fluid, comfortable physical and emotional responses to maintain balance, the kind of balance and energy you had and enjoyed as a child and lost along the way. The symptoms you have are not the problem. They are an invitation to surrender your effort, your spinning plates, your confusion to your internal genius, your nervous system that has been overridden but is ready and willing to do its executive function. It just needs a little leveraging that doesn't come from a paint by numbers rehab protocol. You can get back into the energetic, youthful, joyful human you are designed to be. I have lots of neuroscience to prove it. I'm not interested in babysitting pathology in my practice. I'm interested in the hum of healing. What is novel and interesting to me is how the genius human finds his or her way back to homeostasis, to balance. I'm intentional, paced, and incongruence, having seen it 100 of times, with supporting your system while it heals and you get back to being with your family, not being left behind, and maintaining a healthy weight and accepting invitations versus being frustrated you can't engage. Basically, you moving with ease and doing what you want. Healing happens all the time without being directed. It is only if the environment is not conducive that we do not heal. If you are doing the same things over and over, unconsciously terrorizing your tissues and unintentionally creating a toxic environment, you will not heal. We don't mean to do this. Our sensory streaming is faulty. My method upgrades the system's capacity to sense and feel. It makes the brain more robust and expands cortical real estate. So the brain functions at a higher capacity and efficiency. You grow and learn and form new choices, from how you use your back to how you use your words to how you use your time. All of these things and more to set up an environment of healing. If you have been committed to changing something in your life and you haven't gotten the results you want, or if our time together has maybe made you hopeful that something you didn't think was possible could actually change, I want to encourage you to join me. Many have and experience firsthand results. Normally, I don't work with new groups in this format. I'm only doing this in coordination with my first Facebook campaign. And normally, if you do work with me for a short time like this, a half day, it's $150. And you can only take that day after you have finished my level one classes, a 3-day weekend where we unravel and really get into deep emotional and physical pain and those pathways, and we reroute them. But because I'm exploring something novel and I'm really interested in meeting you, I can't wait to see the outcomes.
You'll get 3 exclusive hours with me and 2 other professional teachers working on a very individual basis. There is a limit of 15 people per class. You'll receive that 60% discount from the normal tuition of $150. You'll also get recorded self adjustment tools. We call them SATs on a USB for you to take home and use at your convenience. And a 20% discount if you decide to continue with this proven path to getting out of pain by attending a 3-day live event, that level one course I do.
All of this for $49 because I'm serious about getting the word out that we can change our pain by changing our brain. Click the button below to register. I want to get serious with you. I want you to learn to move with ease and do what you want.